हेलो फ्रेंड्स, वेलकम टू मनु लॉ क्लासेस। आई एम गौतम दीक्षित। फ्रेंड्स, आज के इस वीडियो में हम रशिया यूक्रेन क्राइसिस 2022 के इम्पोर्टेंट डायमेंशंस कवर करेंगे। द इम्पोर्टेंट थिंग्स विच वी आर गोइंग टू लुक इनटू दिस वीडियो आर, फर्स्ट वी आर गोइंग टू सी द बैकग्राउंड, दैट व्हाट इज द बैकग्राउंड ऑफ दिस कॉन्फ्लिक्ट। देन वी आर गोइंग टू स्टडी अबाउट द humanitarian crisis associated with this. Then we are also going to discuss Operation Ganga. And then we are going to discuss the political and socio-economic impact of this conflict. Now friends, after watching this video, you will able to understand the holistic dimension of this crisis, and I hope that you will be able to answer all the questions, factual as well as analytical, related with this crisis. So let's start with the video. Friends, अब आते हैं हम crisis को समझने के लिए. Before we understand the crisis, we have to understand the map of Eastern Europe. So friends, जैसा कि हम जानते हैं कि यूरोप जो है it is divided into Western and Eastern Europe. तो ये जो वेस्टर्न और ईस्टर्न यूरोप में जो डिवीजन है, दिस डिवीजन इज मोर ऑफ आइडियोलॉजिकल. जो कंट्रीज कैपिटलिज्म फॉलो करती हैं एज देयर सोशो इकोनॉमिक मॉडल, दे आर कॉल्ड एज वेस्टर्न यूरोपियन कंट्रीज. फॉर एग्जांपल फ्रांस, यूके, जर्मनी, इटली एक्सेट्रा. एंड द कंट्रीज विच वर अर्लियर इन्फ्लुएंस्ड बाय यूएसएसआर और दे वर पार्ट ऑफ यूएसएसआर, दे आर नॉर्मली रेफर्ड टू एज ईस्टर्न यूरोपियन कंट्रीज. फॉर एग्जांपल इफ यू सी Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Belarus, even Ukraine, Moldova, Romania, Hungary, Slovakia, these all were the countries who were once the part of USSR, or if they were not the part of USSR but they had communist model of government. Now friends, अब यहाँ पे हम देखेंगे कि हमारा यूक्रेन लोकेटेड है. If you will see that here this is Crimea, this is Sea of Azov, and this is Black Sea, and this is Russia. So if you can see that after the disintegration of USSR, much of the countries in the Eastern European countries, either they joined European Union or they wanted to join European Union. Then after 1991, Ukraine also aspired to become the member of European Union, or it wanted to join NATO. Now NATO is a military alliance which is led by US. Now if the Ukraine becomes the member of NATO, so you can see NATO will come very close to Russia, and this is the crux of all the crises which we are studying today. अब हम एक बैकग्राउंड अगर देखें यूएसएसआर का, द फुल फॉर्म ऑफ यूएसएसआर दैट इज यूनियन ऑफ सोवियत सोशलिस्ट रिपब्लिक्स. इट कंसिस्टेड ऑफ 15 रिपब्लिक्स. यूएसएसआर which disintegrated in 1991. So after the disintegration, 15 independent countries were formed. So these are the names of this country. You can see over here there are 5 Central Asian countries. Then we have Latvia, Lithuania, Moldova, Russia, Ukraine, and then Eurasian countries like Armenia, Azerbaijan, Belarus, Estonia, and Georgia. So if we again look at the map, so you can see these countries, they were earlier the part of USSR. Now द रशिया यूक्रेन क्राइसिस के सेंटर में जो एक रीजन है, जिसको पहले रशिया ने रिपब्लिक डिक्लेयर किया यूक्रेन को इन्वेड करने से पहले, दोज रीजन्स आर लुहांस्क एंड डोनेट्स्क. दिस रीजन इज डोमिनेटेड बाय रशियंस, ओके, एंड इट इज अंडर डिस्टर्बेंस सिंस 2014 when for the first time Ukraine tried to join European Union. Now this Russian dominated region, Luhansk and Donetsk, they are held by separatist leaders. In past, various agreements have been signed to solve this crisis. Most famous among them are Minsk Agreement 1 and Minsk Agreement 2 of 2014 and 15, which we are going to study in detail in this video. Now if we look at the cause of conflict, if we want to understand the background of this crisis, so the first is that Ukraine, it is a buffer region between West and Russia. So keeping Ukraine outside the control of Russia is strategically important for the Western countries. Same is true for Russia also, that keeping Ukraine outside the influence of Western countries is going to be good or strategically important for Russia. But if you see the Euromaidan movement of 2014, it was a civil unrest in Ukraine to protest against the Ukrainian government's decision to suspend the signing of an agreement with European Union. So if you will see the history of Ukraine, so from 1991 to 2014, it was led by pro-Russian leaders. Now, after 2014, the leaders are pro-Western. Now, after the 2014 Euromaidan movement, the politics of Ukraine shifted from pro-Russian to pro-Western, and hence the conflict between Ukraine and Russia has grown. As we remember, that it was in 2014 when Russia annexed Crimea. Now, because the Ukrainian government, which was at that time pro-Russian dominated by pro-Russian leaders, when they suspended the signing of this agreement, it led to the public protest in November 2013, which is in Maidan Nezalezhonsty, which is also called as Independence Square, which is located in Kyiv, Ukraine. Next was the separatist movement. So in the Donbas region, which comprises of Donetsk and Luhansk, which we have done in the previous slides, they started facing pro-Russian separatist movement since 2014. Why? Because when the Ukrainian leaders tried to shift towards the Western countries, there was disturbance in this Russian-dominated region. After that, Russia, it annexed Crimea due to military intervention, okay, and then the next cause is Ukraine's NATO membership. So just like Georgia, Ukraine is also an aspiring member of NATO, but today on 9th March, the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has declared that Ukraine has now no aspiration to join NATO, but it wanted to join NATO previously, which was declared as red line by Russia. Then, in order to solve the problem of Donbas region, Minsk Agreement was signed. So two agreements were signed, Minsk Agreement 1 and Minsk Agreement 2. Minsk Agreement 2 was signed after the failure of Minsk Agreement 1. Both the deals were negotiated by two countries, that were Germany and France, along with one organization for security in Europe. Now, Minsk Agreement 1, so it was Ukraine and Russian-backed separatists who agreed to 12-point ceasefire in the capital of Belarus, that is Minsk. Now, the aim of the Minsk Agreement was to end civil conflict in Donbas region, and it was signed in 2014. If you will see, it was signed by three countries, Ukraine, Russia, and Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe. This Organization for Security and Cooperation for Europe, it was formed during Cold War, because as we can see that already World War I and World War II had significant disastrous impact on Europe. Now, this organization was created to stop the impact of Cold War on the continent of Europe. Now, the 12-point ceasefire was violated by Russia and Ukraine both, and the agreement broke down. Again, next year in 2014, Minsk Agreement 1 was signed to implement the 12 points of Minsk Agreement 1. One group which played a very important role in conclusion of Minsk Agreement were Normandy format talk. Now, this Normandy format talk, it comprises of four countries: Russia, Ukraine, then Germany and France. Now, why it is called as Normandy format talk? Because this talk started on the 70th anniversary of D-Day, that is on 2014. Now, what is D-Day? D-Day was the largest seaborne invasion of Allied countries in Europe during World War II, when Allied forces landed on the coast in France, which is called as Normandy coast. The next is the importance of Black Sea in this conflict. So friends, as you can see, Black Sea. So Black Sea is an important corridor for Russia for its energy transportation, okay, trade, and because of its geostrategic location. Now Russia does not want to lose its influence in Black Sea. As you can see that Ukraine is there, here Turkey is there, here Georgia is there. Turkey is already a member of NATO, which controls two important straits and one Sea of Marmara over here. These straits are called as Bosphorus and Dardanelles Straits. Now if the Ukraine becomes member of NATO, so this area will be dominated by NATO, and hence Russia will lose its sphere of influence in Black Sea. Now if you can see some important exam oriented information related with Black Sea, so we can see that Black Sea is located between Eastern Europe and Western Asia. It is connected to the Sea of Azov by Strait of Kerch. So as you can see over here, this is Sea of Azov and this is Strait of Kerch. The next is there are two straits and one sea which forms a transitional zone between Mediterranean Sea and Black Sea. These are Dardanelles Straits, Bosphorus Straits and Sea of Marmara. So as you can see, these are the two straits and this is Sea of Marmara, which is a system which joins Black Sea with Aegean Sea further to Mediterranean Sea. It is an important outlet for Europe, for Russia to transport its goods to Europe, Africa and towards Asia. Now the next important thing is that what is this NATO? Why Ukraine wants to join NATO? So North Atlantic Treaty Organization, it is a military alliance which was established by the Washington Treaty on 4th April 1949 by United States, Canada and several Western European nations. The aim was to provide collective security to the European countries against the Soviet Union. The headquarters of North Atlantic Treaty Organization is at Brussels in Belgium. The most important article related to NATO is Article 5. ये जो हमने यहाँ पे collective security के बारे में पढ़ा है, ये Article 5 is the key of NATO, which says that attack on any one member of NATO, it means that attack on NATO. So it effectively puts Western Europe under the protection of United States, which is a nuclear power. As of today, there are 30 member states who are the members of NATO, and the latest member is Republic of North Macedonia, which became the member of NATO in 2020. Now if we want to remember that Turkey is also a member of NATO, but Turkey के ऊपर USA ने कास्टा सैंक्शन लगाया था for buying S-400 missile from Russia. Friends, अब NATO बनने के बाद what was the USSR's answer to NATO? So that was Warsaw Pact. So Warsaw Pact, which is also known as Treaty of Friendship, Cooperation and Mutual Assistance, it is also a collective defense treaty which was signed in Warsaw, which is capital of Poland, in the year 1955, मतलब NATO के 6 साल बाद. But when USSR dissolved in 1991, Warsaw Pact was dissolved by Russia. Then after Warsaw Pact, Russia formed a new organization which is called as Collective Security Treaty Organization. Again, it was an intergovernmental military alliance which was established in 1992. The founding members of CSTO are Russia, Armenia, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan and Uzbekistan. 3 new members became the member of CSTO in 1993. They were Azerbaijan, Georgia and Belarus. Now, the next dimension of Ukraine-Russia conflict is Montreux Convention of 1936. The formal name of this convention is the 1936 Montreux Convention regarding the regime of the straits, in which Turkey has control over the Bosphorus and Dardanelles Strait. If there is a war going on, then Turkey has the right to regulate the movement of naval warships and to block the warships belonging to the countries which are involved in the war. Okay. Now the Bosphorus and Dardanelles Straits, they are collectively called as Turkish Straits or the Black Sea Straits. They connect Aegean Sea and Black Sea via the Sea of Marmara. Now it is the only passage through which Black Sea ports can access the Mediterranean and beyond. It means that control over Black Sea is very important for Russia from trade purpose. Now friends, there are certain important dimensions of Russia-Ukraine crisis. One of the dimension is humanitarian issue. Now, till today, about 1 million people have been displaced. Okay, they are traveling towards the neighboring country of Ukraine like Romania, Poland, Slovakia, Moldova. Okay, so one of the impact of this issue is the displacement of about 1 million people. Along with that, around 11,000 Russian troops have been killed till now. Then the next issue is it is related with stranded Indian students. Or stranded Indian nationals, which are 20,000 in number. Now to evacuate the stranded Indians, the Indian government launched Operation Ganga. As of today, 17,500 nationals have been evacuated from neighboring countries of Russia, of Ukraine, that is Romania, Poland, Slovakia and Moldova. Now, there have been a problem in evacuation of students from two cities of Ukraine, that is Kharkiv and Sumy. Now this problem is because these two cities, they lie in eastern Ukraine, which is very close to Russian border. Now the Russian government has proposed of providing a humanitarian corridor for better evacuation of the stranded Indians in Kharkiv and Sumy. Now the other dimension of this conflict is economic. Now friends, as we can see that one of the disastrous economic impact of this crisis is rise in crude oil prices. Now because of this rise in crude oil prices, the global recovery process after COVID-19 has hit a wall. The second disastrous impact is disruption in supply chain. Okay, so because of this, the raw material cost is going to increase. The third impact of this is stagflation. Now what is stagflation? Stagnation plus inflation. When we have high inflation, at the same time we have very high unemployment. So the world is staring at the prospect of high inflation and high unemployment. Because of continuing crisis, the economic crisis in the world is worsening. Now there have been sudden silver linings in this crisis. On 9th of March 2022, in newspaper the news have come that the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, now he has agreed to talk with the Russian counterpart on Luhansk and Donetsk, and second, that he is not aspiring to become the member of NATO. Now these two decisions can lead to talks which can resolve the crisis between Russia and Ukraine. Friends, that's all for today. We will meet in the next video. Please write in the comment box the first Indian casualty, the name of the person who was the first Indian casualty of Russia-Ukraine crisis. Hope you must have found the video quite informative. Thanks for watching.